Welcome to the Home Business Podcast with Richard Captain Henderson, publisher of Home Business Magazine, and Sherilyn Colleen, managing editor. This how-to show helps you successfully operate your home-based business.
Greetings and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. I'm Richard Captain Henderson, your skipper at Home Business TV.
And I'm Shelby Cara, your co-host.
Let's secure, foresee, and get underway. The biggest reasons why small businesses fail is lack of revenue.
Looked at another way, the best you can ensure your small business success is to maximize your revenue.
What better way to do that than to diversify your business and your income streams?
And who better to talk with us about business diversification than Sara Bendrick?
Sara Bendrick is an HGTV Law & Order star, TV host, author of Big Impact Landscaping, and of course, a thriving small business owner.
She's a small business expert who can help us get on the right path to diversifying revenue.
So, greetings, Sara Bendrick. Welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Say hello.
Well, thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Yes.
This is fun. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today. So, how's everything going in your neck of the woods?
Oh, it's actually raining today, which is really weird in Southern California. It doesn't happen that often. So,
Wasn't there an old classic, "It never rains in Southern California"? I don't know.
Yeah, it hardly does.
All right. Well, you get some rare. Well, I heard there's a bad drought out there, so I guess any rain is good.
Yeah, we welcome the rain.
Well,
Absolutely.
thanks for connecting in today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Sara Bendrick, let's get to know you better. Your background sure shows a lot of diversification, reality TV, author, business owner. Can you tell us more about yourself, how you got started, and what you're up to nowadays?
Sure. So my background is in landscape architecture. I went to school for that at Cal Poly. And after I graduated, I got into design build, working for another company. After a few years, I decided to try and go out on my own. And at the same time, I got the opportunity to kind of drop into media, which by hosting a TV show, which was totally like, okay, how do I combine like traditional work and doing like this media stuff, the TV? And so it just started expanding my mind of, okay, instead of just staying in one lane, can I kind of expand into a few? And so now I have my business, Rita Landscapes Incorporated. I still dabble in media. And then I also have a presence on social media that kind of help round out my company overall in terms of bringing in leads as well as different sources of income.
You're an author too?
Oh yes, and that too. And so I wrote a book.
No, we can't. Let's get down the checklist here.
Yes. And so I wrote a book about landscaping, and it was kind of tailored towards the public more so than the professional, but to help people kind of figure out, do I want to hire a professional or do this myself, and kind of realize what's entailed. Because one of the biggest things we come across in landscaping is people don't understand why it's so expensive. And a lot of it is because most of the stuff you see is a lot of stuff you see is underground. All that foundation work that needs to be done, the drainage, the running of wire and conduits and all that stuff can add up after you see like, oh, I thought you were just going to drop some flagstone down.
So what in landscape education prepared you to be a TV host? That's so good.
You know what?
A minor in journalism or something?
No, I actually think that I stood out from, because there was a couple thousand applicants when I basically saw an email and I applied to that email.
Oh, it was one of those open kind of those casting calls?
It was a nationwide open casting call. And I think what made me stand out is that I was actually from the field. And for some reason, and I don't know why I'm comfortable in front of a camera, but
Sure.
Oh, we can see that.
That helps. Yeah.
I was just able to like focus in on like the message that I wanted to present in terms of like, hey, this is my job and I'm just going to do my job. And there's a camera showing me doing my job. And so if you can just like focus on the job and you don't feel awkward on camera, then I don't know. It came across and they asked me to host this show. So,
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, I think not being too hosty
reality.
actually helped me out.
Well, to
Yes.
set the stage, Sara, what exactly are we talking about specifically when we use the term diversifying revenue?
Sure. So when we talk about diversifying revenue within a business, I mean, when you have a small business, you don't really have anybody to bail you out. So you need to think strategically about different ways that you might make income, especially in something like landscaping that can be volatile with the economy. We're the first on the chopping block to go. Depends. I mean, always wealthy people will probably still be investing in landscaping, but there's a big dip in the industry when the economy is maybe not as healthy as other times. So figuring out ways to kind of help buffer those things. And so for me, writing the book, that's one way that is completely different than my actual landscape income. And then having social media presence is a great way for me to actually get leads, but also if you can build up a good enough following and have a good enough message, brands will actually endorse you. And so that becomes another source of income. But then just in your business in general, like even without the media side of it, if I just wanted to focus on the small business, the traditional business of landscape construction and design, I started in design and I added the construction end. So now I can follow a project all the way through I charge for my consultations to show up on the job site, and then charge for design services. And then we charge for installation. And of course, you can always add after services like maintenance. We don't have that at this point, but.
So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but you
Yeah.
kind of got to just kind of take a look at your own business, and each business has its unique ways that you can diversify revenue. And it's not that probably, I don't think everybody can write a book, but you can certainly get into social media.
Totally. And I would say, honestly, books aren't overly income heavy. They're more like they look great on your resume. They hold traditional value to people. So it helps in those aspects. But in terms of income to time, probably not the most.
Right.
Doesn't flush out to be like the best use of my time. But I think it's been in other ways a great calling card. So you can leave the book with clients.
Yeah, it builds instant credibility when you see
Yeah.
that book cover.
Totally.
Absolutely. I have a question. So do you still see people reaching out to you because they saw your show Law and Order? Do you still get business from the show?
It's interesting because it's a nationwide audience. In fact, they've packaged the show to be international in different ways too. And so I do have people reach out to me for that stuff, but it's not like my main driver of leads. Like word of mouth is amazing. And then other ways of like locally marketing, because it's a nationwide audience. Oftentimes you'll get people in Florida being like, hey, can you, in my old show, I Hate My Yard, they still do reruns of that. And I do see like activity of people reaching out, but oftentimes they're more interested in following the show model of like, hey, can you come like save me and bring a TV budget and work on my yard?
Right.
So it's good for exposure, but not necessarily in bringing back like quality leads in terms of feeding the business.
Yeah,
Lots
that
of
makes
good
sense.
people there, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then side note. So Richard, I feel like we already kind of asked this question. Why is diversifying recurring revenue so important for a small business owner? Do you still
But it is so important.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know if we still ask that. I will ask it. Okay, we can cut that. So Sara, why is diversifying recurring revenue so important for any small business owner?
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be flexible and you have to, nobody's bailing you out. So you gotta figure out different ways to float in case there's volatility in the market, or even if there's not, and there's like personal things that maybe you break your arm and you can't be in the field. I could still design, even if I can't put a plant in the ground. And also just delegating. That's a big part of business too, and diversifying.
For small business services to leverage services they already have. So you figured out a way to take landscaping and leverage other parts of the services. So, that's important also, but I guess that's kind of unique for every business.
Yeah. Every business is going to have unique opportunities to expand or not, but I think sometimes they're obvious and sometimes they're not. For me, it was like a lot of people stay in the line of design and you can expand and have a bigger design company. For me, I decided let's stay small. We'll still take design, but let's add construction, because construction generally is more income heavy than design. However, design has low, you don't have a lot of costs associated with design. Once you buy your programs in front of your computer, it's just your time. So there's like the pro and cons of each, which can help in different aspects.
Well, that's a key. I've never looked at it that way, but that's a good point. You got to look at, how much revenue is coming in from that diversification, but then also how much, investment do you have to make? And so that's a good point you made out. Design, it doesn't have a heavy lift, whereas but it might not have as much income, but then the actual construction can have a lot of income, but then I guess there's more risk because it comes with a heavy lift.
Yeah, exactly. And so like for other businesses that might just be doing construction, like to maybe hire on somebody that solely does design for them. It's their income in a program. And other than that, if you could figure out how to make that model work, then that's a nice addition to your company and services that you offer people. And that's one of the best things too, is being able to take a client from the beginning to the end of a process. They're more likely, like, because we do everything a la carte. Our clients, once we do a design, I'm like, you're free to bid out if you want. I mean, I don't encourage it, but I'm like, if the conversation's there, I'm like, you're welcome to. But I would say like 90% of our clients go through the full process with us because we already have the ball rolling and they feel comfortable with us and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, then you get going with a current client, an existing client, and that, I think, having good relations there and then building from one to the next is one of the best ways to keep things rolling.
yeah, absolutely. Keeping like how much, like, don't mean this sounds in a bad way, like we're not trying to be manipulative, but how much services can you offer that one client? Because if they're already sold on you, what else can you offer them? And then on top of that, if you do a great job, they're going to tell their friends and they're going to have those same expectations. So I think that's a great way of being stable.
Shelby, we're having so much fun. I forgot, whose question is this now?
No, it's my question. Yes, businesses, honestly, once you get established, it is all about referrals. So, new business startups have a challenge in diversifying their business as they're just getting established. So, Sara, do you have any advice for a new business owner to expand revenue sources?
Yeah, I would say if you're a new business, I would actually probably focus on the first service that you're offering and really nail that down and really get that organized and efficient in the best way that you can. And whether that's using systems like Jobber, where they help you track everything, that was a big game changer for me, where we get a lead, they sign up on my website, it automatically uploads onto the Jobber platform, and then we can call them. And then anytime I want to send them an invoice or a proposal or whatever, I can just go ahead and forward that through instead of like doing it by hand, and it just streamlined things. So I would say for new businesses, figure out your systems, how are you going to track things, and really knock out that first service before you start figuring out how to diversify, because you want to make sure that you understand your business. And then after you have that and you're like, okay, I'm set, now I need another challenge, find your next thing to diversify.
I like a little nugget you brought out there, is that you're leveraging technology to kind of help your back end office processes and looking at ways to streamline things then.
And I think that's the most important thing if you are going to diversify and have different income sources, is you really need to be the most efficient you can, that you know how to, with the things you've already started. Because when I was just doing things by myself, like I would write down a client, I would have to look up their email or their phone number and all these different sources. And it would take me 10 times longer to do these things. So just having that all streamlined, now I can work with my project manager and be like, can you contact this client? All the information's here. You know how to get it. I don't even need to be involved. I just need to set the ball.
So I guess as a small business owner, I mean, a lot of things is just, you lose so much time in communication and coordination. So if you can pick the right tools, that can help you diversify things by smoothing that out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, for sure. Oh, sorry. I just have another question. So when you were first getting started, did you set up your social media like right when you started, or did you get started and then set that up? Because I know social media started to become a lot bigger, like 2019 or so, I would say. So yeah. Sure.
I would say, I started in 2012 when I started my business, and that was about the same time the pilot started for my first show, I Hate My Yard, but it didn't air for almost a year later. I went ahead and I cleaned up all my old social media from I don't know my drunk college day photos showing up anywhere. So I cleaned out those things and started separate accounts for the business. But I actually don't have Sarita Landscapes Inc. as a social media. I just use my name because I bounce between the media of I almost am myself in a product to brands. So I've done most of my social media under my name. But yeah,
I think that's kind of the best way. If you've got good name ID like you have, I think it's good to start branding it towards your name. And that's a ultimate credibility.
And I think it depends on where businesses want to go. I think it makes a lot of sense for people who are not trying to be media personalities to have their social media in their company's name and be very clear what your services are. And I tell people, you don't need to be a social media influencer, but you should have a presence on one or some platforms, because that's where a lot of people are going immediate to like look you up. You know, there's not the yellow pages really anymore. Maybe they are, but
right. I just asked that because I noticed, you know, like since like maybe like the later 2010s, a lot of people started getting more to becoming their own business owners. So yeah, just curious about that. No, it's very important to have like a social media presence.
Well, you know, we've hit a lot of the good concepts on Diversifying. Let's kind of like dial it back to right to the beginning. So, you know, Sarah, how can entrepreneurs like begin to expand services to create, you know, income streams? Like what are maybe some of the first steps?
Sure. So for diversifying, I think first get your company set and going and organized the best you can. Get that first business idea down and flushed out. After you do that, start looking at where you can offer more services to the clients that you already have to expand those services. And it's a natural progression. And then after you kind of do that, decide what kind of company you want to be. Do you want to be a big company? Because you can just keep expanding your company, but there's also like this break off point where it's worth it.
Right.
Because the bigger you get, the more responsibilities you might have and the bigger risks you might have of things falling through. So I've decided to stay small personally.
I think that's smart. It's better to do less and do it better than to try to, you know, as a bite off more than you can chew. And the next thing you know, clients aren't happy and you're looking around trying to figure out how to get caught up, and you know, it can just sort of tumble from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think if the better you are at your niche, but you can still expand in your niche, I think that more you can charge for it. But it's always been somewhat important to me to stay somewhat obtainable for like the average homeowner. I, of course, love working for high-end clients, but I think there's also something very rewarding for working with like people that you're changing their lives by changing their yard.
I heard like higher-end clients can maybe be a little more difficult or demanding, and I don't know.
It totally depends. Like, it's more that I think it's just really nice to be able to go in and really change the way people live. If you're helping somebody that's maybe like in a mid-income range versus a high income, they already have a nice place. You're just changing it to their style.
Oh, so you can make a much better improvement relative in their living place by, you know, by the appearance of the landscaping.
Yeah. I mean, it all varies. Like I enjoy working with all levels of client, but it's been important because I don't want to price myself out too far where I can only work with high-end clients. So it's always been important for me to kind of figure out how can I stay in this mid-range that I find very rewarding as well and make that work.
I get one thing about just myself with a little understanding of landscaping and all, that you have to adapt your niche. I like the way you say niche. I said niche, the niche. I like that. That you have to kind of adapt it to where you're at. So if you're in Florida, you do landscaping a certain way, but if you're in Southern California, it would be more drought resistant and, you know, more.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And yeah, especially with landscaping and where it snows and stuff like that, I think they all diversify and, you know, snow plowing and stuff like that. You have to go with the seasons there. Luckily I'm in San Diego. I don't need to do that. But
yeah, we do snow plow landscaping in Minnesota up here. So.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So Sarah, what are a few success factors in selecting and succeeding in a business that diversifies your core established business?
I mean, I think you've covered a lot of these. If you have any, you know, additional nuggets here for success factors.
Sure. I think one, as a business owner, is you're not paying taxes normally. And so something that's really important is when you do get your checks, start a separate bank account. So I have my business checking and then my business savings. And whenever I get decent sized checks, I'll take a portion of that and put that in the savings. And that's for my quarterly taxes, because you don't want to get stuck, especially when you're, you know, dealing with a lot of money. Because you don't pay that tax right away. If for some reason you miss it, like a quarter or something, then you owe, you know, $20,000 that you're able to.
It's so funny how so many people miss that they think of their salary as, you know, what, you know, their net income, and they forget there's all this stuff that's added on that, you know, for covering for taxes and payroll. And then they can get really hit. It doesn't take long in a few months to have a big tax liability. Plus that's an audit flag.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So always try and, take that portion off the top and put it in a separate spot that it's not running through everything else. So when you're ready to pay those taxes, it's not your money. It's going out.
How are you as far as like finding a good accountant and, getting some core people services,
Sure.
trying not to do it all yourself?
I think
Things
that
to
was
outsource. Any advice there? Do you use a
sure.
virtual assistant or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. So I have a bookkeeper and a CPA, and my bookkeeper is quite affordable, I think. And I've had her for years. I don't know, probably 10 years now. She's awesome, and that's been really helpful because I have no interest in keeping books, and I'm not good at it. So paying that fee to do that has been well worth it. It was a struggle when I was trying to do everything myself. I had always had a bookkeeper, but just running the business side of things, like
Yeah, I
design.
mean, you got to get started doing it all yourself initially.
Yeah. And like there was like, some areas where I got tons of anxiety because I was like, I don't have enough hours in the day to, keep up with these commitments of potential clients. And the only really way was for me to diversify in terms of not diversifying, delegating. So the only way for me to actually like have a life and a business was to get comfortable with taking tasks off my plate and allowing other people in to share with the
I
creativity.
think that's the great equalizer. We all just have the same amount of time each day.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how are you?
And so just having like somebody that you trust to like help you keep up with clients, or like you're bouncing ideas off of somebody, has been so nice and really a game changer, because
Yeah.
I can only grow so much as myself. And so you have to figure out how to delegate.
I've been trying to find a virtual assistant for 10 years, but I'm just too difficult. I don't know.
You
That's
know
the one
what?
thing I think. I should do.
There's this company, I have a virtual assistant too, but she mostly helps on the social media side. And that side,
That's
I
where I
honestly
need.
feel like
Yeah.
I'm still figuring that out. But there's a company called Virtual Latinos, and they interview, like you tell them what you want, and they interview a bunch of college educated persons. And I set up 4 interviews, and I decided to hire one off of that.
Wow. So it worked, huh?
So it's not even like an employee, it's an expense because I'm paying a company for a service.
Right. I need to
Yeah,
look at-
that's been really helpful too. And like you could find accountants that way too.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Well, Sara Bendrick, this has been a great discussion on your businesses and in creating new revenue streams. Do you have any final points you'd like to share?
The only point I want to share is Jobber's been amazing, and I am speaking for their PR day on February 16th. There'll be some awesome people there. Damon John from Shark Tank will be the main speaker there. There's a handful of other speakers that are really.
Can you get me on Shark Tank?
I wish. I love that show. I love that show. But yeah, so there's a lot of speakers that have run businesses, and it's just going to be like a really feel good day for business owners and project managers that want to learn more and how to be more efficient.
Absolutely. Sara Bendrick, thank you for joining us today on the Home Business Podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. And just like to leave all the listeners with one nugget. So I think the nugget today is expansion 101. Sara has shared a lot of good points. Start thinking about how you can begin expanding your businesses.
Mm-hmm. To learn more about Sara Bendrick's fascinating business journey, please visit sarabendrick.com or our podcast website for more information on guests.
Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Home Business Podcast. Share your feedback with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and at our website, homebusinessmag.com.
Subscribe to our newsletter, read our book, The Home-Based Business Startup Guide. For more info, visit homebusinessmag.com or homebusinessexpo.com.
I'm Richard Henderson saying anchors away.
We'll talk with you soon. Until then.
Make it a great home-based business expansion day.